Welcome back to Wingnuts, the home of MicroMaintenance, and on this episode we've got something special for you. We have the entire team that has built our custom Skyranger Ninja LS. This is an awesome little video showing the dedication of all our team to produce one of the nicest Microlight aircraft in a very, very long time.
So everybody's been asked these same questions. What is the most memorable part of the build for you?
Sorry, say that. Stop. Boxes.
Boxes?
Lots of boxes.
Yeah.
When they all turned up, it was in the old workshop, which is not the size of the space that we've got now, and it was just full of boxes. Yeah. And then the boxes slowly got opened, and there was just then loads of Tupperwares of bolts and screws.
No, this was a daft idea.
It's not a daft idea.
Whose great idea was this?
Yours.
Oh, yeah.
Yours.
Yeah. There's too many. There's too many memorable parts. The entire thing. I
can't accept your first answer.
There's a bit too many things. Most memorable bit for me would definitely be when we decided to do this type of build. Yeah. As opposed to what we originally planned. Yeah. And I think that for me was quite a stressful time. Yeah. Certainly in the period of this, you know, we bought this kit 3 years ago. It arrived in February 2020, and we had enough time to get all excited about the build to be then thrown straight into lockdown.
So if I can bring you back to the question,
yeah,
what's your most memorable part of the build?
Deciding to do this.
Deciding to do that?
Yeah, deciding to go absolutely nuts with it.
Shelley, we know how much you love a camera.
I do.
And many times you run a million miles from this anyway. So
I love being on camera. This is the one that I was having to think about, because it's not my part of it with the engine. It's not not finished yet. Yeah. Because we're still finishing off the engine runs, going step by step, getting to know it.
Building a relationship with an engine.
Building a relationship. I think the most memorable bit is at the beginning of the build, trying to work out how I wanted to build it, as looking through the eyes of a person that was going to do the maintenance on it in the future. Just standing and looking at it and thinking, what are all of the bits that I found difficult to access on other aircraft? How can I arrange them in layers so they're nice and neat, so that I can actually get to things? And I had to take a float bowl off one of the carburetors next to the oil tank, and I could actually get it. And I was amazed.
So we finally pinned you down to get this interview, haven't we?
You have, yeah.
You've been very much like the Scarlet Pimpernel for this, and we can't make this video without you.
Well, first things that come to mind are the day the kit arrived, and both Mark and I were quite excited to unpack it and being the inspector to inspect all the bits and pieces. The second part of that question, if you like, was that Mark surprised me with saying, "Alan, I've got the registration for this aircraft, and it's the Jackson build, JKSN," and I was overwhelmed.
So, Brendan, you are sat by the mighty Jackson, which you have done.
I've no idea why I'm here.
You know why you're here?
I've no idea why I'm here. Well, everything's memorable that you're on, you know. In terms of separating all the different activities, I mean, I couldn't separate them because each one's got its own satisfaction.
Yeah, but there has to be one that's been most memorable or challenging.
Well, let's go with the doors for challenge. Yeah. Because there's sort of two halves on each side, and that's 4 panels of Lexan. Yeah. But we've actually got 5 panels of Lexan because there's one in the bin.
There's one in the bin.
There's one in the bin. If it ain't right, don't use it. Yeah. If it ain't right, start again.
The very start of it, really, when it was just several boxes of bits and starting to put the framework together. I think that was the most memorable bit. It's like the aircraft was being born.
Was that very much like the MicroMaintenance was being born at the same time for that?
Well, it was really, because the team was just getting together. We'd done lots of projects together, but this was a major project that was going to take some time to complete.
It's going to sound really sad, and it was quite a recent memorable bit, was during the engine runs, actually seeing the aircraft move under its own power when Shelley taxied it off down to go and do some ground runs. I was like, that's quite cool. That's the first time it's moved under its own power. You know, it's gone from bits, instructions, process to moving. And it sounds really sad, but that for me was just like, it's moving. So the next question, what's your favourite bit and why?
My favourite bit is, I've got a few favourite bits actually, but I really love the silver foil effect around the reg and the extra stars on the silver. I think they really set it off, the design off. And just the little details like the colouring around the dash. I love the purple dash. I love the gaiter and the stitching being different colours and the seating. We don't do just plain black. We need colour in it. And there's just loads of...
one favourite bit?
No, I can't. There's not. There's not. No, I can't have just one. There's lots of favourite things. Detail, little detail.
My favourite bit might not be what you think. My favourite bit is the reaction that it's generated. I love seeing the people. It's got its own fan club. I love that people come to the workshop just to look at it, that there's people that we catch just staring at it, and people we talk to, we were at Popham, people collaring us going, oh, I was really looking forward to seeing it. And I think for me that's the favourite bit, because it makes all of the hard work that we've all put into it worthwhile. It's nice, yes, isn't it pretty, and all of that, and it's got all of these gadgets and gizmos, and it looks like it's ram-readied Halfords, but it's all right coming up with these good ideas, but when other people agree with you, that for me is my favourite bit of all the crazy things that we've done.
Favourite part of the build is when you get to open the box with the engine in it, brand new, because you'll never ever see it like that ever again. And it's not being attached to an aircraft, and it's just the engine, and you make the assumption that it should work as you expect it to. Right. And then you attach it to the engine, and then it's all downhill since from
You start adding fuel and oil and coolant.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
So opening the box is your favourite
Opening
part?
the box.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know whether there's a particular single favourite bit, but I like to see the fuselage built. And I like to inspect that and pass that off as being the first step, as it were. And then the second one, I think, is when the engine goes in. It sort of starts to complete the aircraft and make the aircraft as though it's starting to come alive.
My favourite part of the build is probably doesn't concern me, because it's the testing and completion and finishing, you know, and that's sort of a shared satisfaction of the whole MicroMaintenance team, isn't it? Yeah. You know, when you see it out there, the engines are running up, you know, it's looking lovely. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's a great milestone. But I mean, what was your question?
What is your favourite part of the build?
Favourite part? I think I enjoyed doing the one-piece rear screen.
Yeah.
I think I'm not aware of another Skyranger with a one-piece rear screen.
I'm looking at it now and it looks amazing.
Yeah, and yeah, there are templates, but I mean, what I did as I've done with other areas, you know, I made a template first and then worked from that. Yeah. And yeah, it's great when you've got a piece of Lexan and you're able to cut it, and it doesn't just follow a shape, a straight shape, it follows a curved shape as well, and all the different angles that are in it.
It just looks amazing.
It's a nice bit.
I think the favourite part for me was watching Mark put all the graphics on it, because it made such a difference to the look of the aircraft. But it's not just the graphics, there's all sorts in the engine that have been coloured and anodised. So yeah, it's a really terrific aircraft, and that...
I don't think there's much standard on this aircraft.
No. All those, the little bits, the attention to detail.
My favourite bit is is part of a concept, and it's more to do with inside, and I've just gone back to have a look. It's designed for a pilot, so things like the overhead console, it's not just a switch, it's got a light, it's confirmation, and it just all the way down through the flap setup, the Arduino that's in the background, it's as close as you're going to get to fly-by-wire without being fly-by-wire in the back of that thing. And it's just that whole concept that people will never see what makes it good. It just is. And that starts from just the top right the way down to the bottom, down to what's here. And there's just so much hidden and thought, even down to the passion behind, I don't want that connector, I want that one. And no one will ever see that, but it just works. And that, I suppose it's attention to detail and concept, really. Yeah, that's my favourite bit. And the main question, if someone was watching this video, what advice would you give them?
Give yourself 3 times the amount of time that you think it's going to actually take you. Because you will completely underestimate it. It takes a long time. Yeah. A lot longer than what you think it's going to take.
Yeah. Manage your expectations. Very much manage your expectations. We speak to a lot of people who are building kits, and I had the same aspirations. Yeah, we'll get it built in the quickest possible time and everything will be great. That would be, don't set yourself unrealistic targets. There was a huge period on this build where we didn't touch it for months. We went down a route and a standard that we had to maintain. And so suddenly making sure that every nut and bolt was in the right orientation with the next one sets you up with a standard that you then can't compromise on. And so taking a break from the build actually put us back on track to be able to keep the standard high, to give us, well, in my opinion, one of the nicest ninjas that I've seen.
So I guess my bit of advice would relate to what I've heard Alan especially say about building the Skyrangers, is that both for the is read the manual, but you've got, when it comes to the engine, you've got 2 manuals to look at. You've got the Rotax manual that tells you about the installation and how the systems should all be plumbed in and wired up, but then you've got the airframe manual that tells you how it should be, how the aircraft manufacturer has designed the engine to fit in it. And if you pick up the Skyranger build manual and you just go page by page by page and build it, you'll probably find that you'll end up getting so far along and you'll have to backtrack. So read through the build manual and the engine manual for the whole process, so you can get the big picture of what you need to do before you actually attack it with a spanner.
Or a drill,
yeah.
Or a screwdriver.
Yeah, but you have to read both manuals and not just the one. That's what I'd say.
Well, it's quite a strong advice actually. Being an inspector and a new build inspector, I've seen a lot of build started off incorrectly and finished up not the best job. So my advice would be read the manual, not once, but several times. And as you're building, always be a few pages ahead of yourself so that you understand exactly what you're doing. And if in doubt, ask. Don't take a flyer, as they say, and put it together, then find there's further down the build that you've got to take it all apart again.
If somebody's watching this video, obviously they're probably watching it. They're probably watching it because they're keen to build a Skyranger. So the main thing is think things through. Just think things through and imagine yourself doing things before you actually do it, because then you'll be able to relate the manual to what you're doing practically.
How many times did you reread the manual?
Well, you do, don't you? You just
Yes,
you read it
yes.
and then you read it
We
again,
do,
and then
but
you try and interpret it. Because with the best will in the world, manuals are written by somebody with a certain perspective, and you have to read, interpret, understand, and where necessary, pick the phone up to the manufacturer. So and I would say don't be afraid to ask, because that's what it's about, isn't it?
Your key bit is don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Don't be afraid to ask. Brilliant.
You need a clean working environment. It needs to be properly organised, and don't rush anything, don't cut any corners. Do it properly.
Do it properly.
Yeah.
Read the manual, read it again, fill your cup up again, read it again, go and look at the bits, and then do it the next day. Because the amount of times that you could end up bolting it together and then having to unbolt it and waste the nylon nuts and everything and then put it all back together again. It's read it, read to the end, read the next chapter. It's just having a full understanding of what you're setting yourself up for. And it's not a Lego build where you go, get bag A, open bag A into a tray and use these. Oh, and by the way, you need bag C, but you don't know that until you get to the end. And so it's very much read it again, come back the next day and then do it.
People don't know that you do a lot of design work on aircraft. So how did you come up with this scheme from that design?
I don't know really, it's just going off, seeing something that you think, oh, that would work really well in that situation, on that piece of plane, on the fuselage, on the front, and then going, oh, actually, but I really like that, so I'd like to add that into it somehow, and then just merging it together, and just sometimes you look at it and go, oh, doesn't quite look how you want it to in your mind.
How many designs did you go through before you came to this one?
Oh, the hours worth of looking at.
And that's the bit people really don't see when they go.
There's a lot that goes into getting a design sorter for a plane and then putting it on the plane. It's like, we should have a competition on this one really, because Mark did obviously one side with all the stars, and the stars don't just come in a sheet, they're put on separately, and then it'd gone a bit over the top. So I kind of went off a bit of the design. And I was like, Mark, what are you doing? It just got a bit over the top. So
Mark, over the top?
Yeah, so we took some off, and then I said to him, oh, no, you're going to replicate this on the other side. So we should have competition, really. It's a good job he's got OCD, isn't it?
So what, if you had to have a competition, what would it be?
Well, which stars in the wonky place are not quite right, which I'm sure that it's not. I'm sure they're all perfectly placed.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
That's all right.
Why did you choose a Ninja?
Well, a good question, actually, as questions go. We originally, we were looking at replacing the school aircraft for micro training, because we're currently using the C-42. So the C-42 was getting a bit old. So we looked at all the aircraft that were out there, and we looked at a factory C-42B, and we got the prices for that. There was issues, obviously, because they didn't do factory-built Ninjas at the time. And it was weighing up a lot of things. Price had a huge factor in it, because obviously when you're kit building, it's the labour. So there's a huge price difference, which when you're running a commercial operation is a big factor. But then there was other things that have come around that have since made me really happy that we did this, even if it was staying as a school aircraft, and we will eventually put a Ninja in the school. But for me, the Skyranger is one of the nicest aircraft that you can fly. There are aircraft that fly better, but for me, these are a fantastic aircraft to fly, but also they're a fantastic aircraft to own. Spare parts are what you would expect to pay You don't take a sharp intake of breath because you've got to change X, Y, and Z. Flylight are invaluable, you know, whether you bought the kit from them straight away or whether you've just bought a second-hand classic, you know, they're on the phone and things like that make a massive difference. You know, right price, good product, and great after sales.
Would you do it again?
Yes, in a heartbeat.
Yeah?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. They're so much fun to build.
And on that note, what would you do differently?
There's a lot of things I wouldn't do. The wiring particularly. I mean, this was my COVID project, whilst everyone was sitting around going to the beach and I was locked in the workshop on my own, stressing that we weren't going to be able to get this plane built. And so I massively overcomplicated the wiring, which I've recently had to do a wiring schematic, and it looks like the London Underground. But
I might put that on the screen.
yeah,
because you've had to build that wiring diagram
wherever you put it
in front of your face.
And there was no need to make it that complex. It was more of because I could rather than I had to. I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could have made life a lot easier by not doing that.
So, because you're the first person to move the aircraft under power, aren't you?
I am. So from the very first start, just take it in as small as steps as you possibly can. And don't have the expectation that you've got the engine in and everything's going to work as it should. So do short little runs, take the cowlings off, check for leaks, and if that's all right, go on to the next run, maybe try a little bit higher power. So just take it in little steps, because for the first 25 hours, you don't know what the installation's going to do. It's bedding in, and yeah, you're getting to know it. So for the first 25 hours, I'd say, and especially the first 5 hours, it's under test in every sense.
As an inspector of this aircraft, there are some very unique features that you've designed, and I'm looking at one right now, the armrest. How challenging was it? Because I've seen that over the years I've been here in varying guises. It is so subtle, but how challenging was that to create?
Well, it does look a very simple mechanism, and in theory it is. But there was a lot of trial and error, as they call it, and off and on, I guess, it was sort of a 6-month project. Not all the while, but you say I'd think about it, I'd get it working, it would work, but not to my satisfaction. Because I wanted it to go up every time you knocked it with your elbow, and I wanted it to stay down whilst you were in flight. So yes, it was a simple project that became a bit of a challenge at the end.
Was it nice seeing it work?
Oh, I'm very pleased, yeah. And several people like it, of course.
Oh, here's some answers I prepared earlier.
Here's some answers?
Here's some answers I prepared earlier. Just in case, because I wasn't sure what you'd ask me, you see. Yeah. Although you tried to give me the questions, I wouldn't have it. Yeah. So, I mean, for micro maintenance, attention to detail is a really biggie. Back to the Lexan. My best friend on the build is Clicos. Because without the Clicos and fitting it before the rivets, where would you be? Flap lever cutting, that was interesting. But again, use the manual, get the distances right. Oh, we didn't mention the spats. Because you can have spats with standard brakes.
Yeah.
You can have 600 legs with standard brakes. Or you can have 600 legs with Brembo brakes.
Behringer.
Sorry, I'm thinking of a motorbike. Behringer brakes, quite right. It was quite time consuming to actually get the openings right, but it was well worth it for the look in the end.
You've seen this aircraft right from the beginning. What would you take away from this? Because again, you've been involved at varying stages, but what are you taking away from when you see this aircraft fly now?
Well, I think the attention to detail on the build is the attention to detail that we need to give to our own aircraft, maintaining our own aircraft.
Would you kind of almost say that you are the quality control?
Well, I don't think I'm the quality control, no. But I think we all are the quality controllers for our own aircraft, and I think the same principles apply. Don't cut any corners, you know, do it properly, basically.
What would you do different?
What would I do different? Oh, blimey, that's a good one, that is. I don't think I would do anything different because this aircraft is built by people with passion. You can't replicate that. You can't do that in any other way. So the fact that this aircraft has had all the people that people are seeing in this video putting their heart and soul into it because they want it to be not just 100%, it's 100, it's just over the line. Everything's not just, that'll be all right, that'll do a trip, old phrase. It's, I'm not happy with that, that's coming out, we'll redo that. That for me is, you can't do that in any other way. So you can't do this aircraft in any other way. So for me, that's my answer really. I know I've skirted around the edge of it, but that's it.
Well unanswered.
Well unanswered, yeah.
So that's it, that's the team, that's their opinions. I hope it's been of some use and shows you just on how fantastic the MicroMaintenance team is and all of the hard work that goes into doing the things that we do. Stay tuned because we've got a number of Jackson videos coming out. The next one is going to be a real treat. So for now, I'll see you next time.